Hey everybody, this is Mr. Moffat coming at you again. This is AP Governments, another Topic 1.2 lesson. We're going to round it out here. We've been focusing in on types of democracy, and today what we're going to be doing, since we've covered some, very important conflicting attitudes regarding what American government is, we'll round it out by taking a look at arguably the greatest debate regarding American democracy in our nation's history, and that is the debate between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Now, I know we haven't gotten into the Articles of Confederation yet, but we will later on. Just suffice to say that once we break away from England and we cease becoming colonies, we attempt a form of government known as the Articles of Confederation, which in many respects is a major 180 regarding the views of strong national power. Unfortunately, as we'll learn later on, the Articles of Confederation didn't work out so well, and so within just a few years, we decided that it needed to be chucked and replaced with a new government, which we'll eventually call the Constitution. Now, we'll obviously get into the deets of the Constitution later on in this unit, but suffice to say that when the Constitutional Convention is concluded, and it does have this new plan for government, this new document for government called the Constitution created, it does not automatically go into effect. According to Article 7 of the Constitution, the final article, it requires 9 of the 13 states to approve the Constitution for it to go into effect. Therefore, what started as a debate in Philadelphia now becomes a debate in every state capital with amongst its respective state legislatures. So the question becomes, do we ratify this new plan for government or do we not? And that is where the debate comes from. Federalists are those that are in support of this new Constitution, while Anti-Federalists are those that are in opposition to this new Constitution. First off, taking a look at the Federalists, do not confuse the Federalists here in the late 1780s, 1788 approximately, that are trying to lobby to get the Constitution ratified. Do not confuse these folks with the eventual Federalist Party, political party, that is going to be emerging in the late 1790s. So that is an important thing to keep in mind. These are not political parties. These are just prevailing differences of opinion on this specific topic, the ratification of the Constitution. So for those that were Federalists, why did they support the Constitution? Well, these Federalists of that time period, including people like George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and others, these were folks that supported the new Constitution because this new Constitution is going to have a much stronger central government than what we had under the Articles. The Articles of Confederation, as we'll learn, was a state power heavy government with a weak national government, and there was legitimate reasons to have such a government out of fears of national tyranny. But one of the lessons that these Federalist founders remembered was the incident regarding Shays' Rebellion, and how an uprising of Massachusetts farmers nearly topples the entire national government. These were folks that were very concerned about majoritarianism. They were very concerned about protecting the rights of the landed elites, which they were, and they believed that only a stronger national government would be able to protect their rights, in particular property rights. But basically the idea being is that if you cannot have a government that is strong enough to protect your rights as a citizen, then that is a failed government. And if you remember, looking back, looking at the ideals of John Locke, and Montesquieu and others regarding, the role and purpose of government, that kind of makes sense. Government exists to protect our rights, and these Federalists believe that the old government under the Articles couldn't protect our rights, and that this new stronger government under the Constitution could and would, and therefore we needed to ratify the Constitution. Now, on the other side of the coin were the Anti-Federalists. Now, these folks, which included famous figures such as Samuel Adams, Patrick Henry, Richard Henry Lee, these are folks that did not want the new Constitution excuse me, to be ratified. And that is because these folks still have a very, very, very strong memory of what it was like to live under colonial English rule. The very notion that we broke away from England in part was that there was this strong, powerful national government that was far away from our daily lives, that was tyrannizing us, and was using a strong military to take away our individual freedoms and rights. And that was why we created a Articles of Confederation government that made a point to limit those national powers. So these were folks that were saying, yeah, the Articles may not be perfect, but we cannot throw out the baby with the bathwater in an attempt to, protect or try to, create a national government that's really going to be strong enough, they believe, to tyrannize us. So this was a major concern, especially amongst the Anti-Federalists, which believed that this new Constitution, as it is framed, has no, or very few, I should say, specific protections for individual rights. There are some things that are mentioned in the Constitution, talking about, no ex post facto laws, no terms for nobility, there's no religious test to hold public office. I mean, there's some, there's protection of writ of habeas corpus, and so there's a few things in there, but not much, not really much at all. What about freedom of speech? What about freedom of religion? What about, due process, and, things like that? None of those things are explicitly protected in the Constitution in its original form. So these are folks that were saying that if you don't have these rights in writing, then they don't really exist, and therefore the government is going to have pretty much easy sway to tyrannize us. So these folks did not want this government ratified, and so we mentioned this right here as the debate over what kind of democracy do we have and should we have, in many respects, starts at least with regards to the Constitution right here in this process. Okay. Now, obviously, we know ultimately the Federalists will win out, but that's going to be through one heck of a propaganda advertising process known as the Federalist Papers, and some important promises and wheeling and dealing done to actually get this new Constitution ratified. But we'll get to that later. We'll get to that another time. Okay? Once again, you should be able to differentiate between the prevailing views and be able to provide arguments in favor of both Federalist and Anti-Federalist views regarding the debate over the ratification of the Constitution. Okay? We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.